Good morning, my name is Jacob Folger and I am an artist and a sculptor, and today we're going to make a mermaid. And always, as before you start, you want to knead your clay. It's referred to as conditioning. And what it does basically, also it makes it very pliable, but also it warms it to the touch of your hand, and it mixes all the ingredients inside the clay so they work properly when you bake it. So I'm just going to make basically a little mound. We'll start off with like this to work on. I'm going to build the mermaid on top of that. And then I'm just going to start building the mermaid a little bit, creating little shapes in clay and assembling them to get them to a point where they look a bit like a mermaid, and then I'll build off of that. I've got this shape here. And I'm really not quite sure at this point what I want it to look like. So I'm just starting, and this is kind of where the creativity part comes in. Kind of gonna create a little bit of a torso here. I think I need a little bit more clay there. So right now what I have here is the mound and the tail, a little bit of the tail. Creating a shape like this for the torso and putting it on there. It takes I would say a little bit more ability and concentration to sculpt a figure, like a mermaid or a fairy or a human or an animal. Okay. I'm just working a little bit on the head here. I'm going to get a piece of wire to attach the head just to make it a little bit more secure. I just cut a piece of wire actually just with a pair of scissors. A lot of people don't realize that you don't have to go out and buy a $20 pair of snips. So I'm just going to slide that down where the neck would go. Take a little bit of clay and wrap it around that to form the neck. And then blend that in. And then we'll put the head on there like that. As a start. I want to probably make the see how that looks there as the focal point of the I mean, you could look at it from any direction, but there's this one direction which is like, to me, is like the title. It's weird, and that's where, you know, most people would like say, oh, that's kind of where it's, where you look at it first almost. And I'm working on now the, I guess you would call the flippers of the tail, just forming that, and just to, I'd like to kind of just keep the whole thing going, you know, so that I can actually see my creation. You can see the whole thing and see how it's working out. Like that. I just, every once in a while, I pick it up off the table just to make sure it's not sticking way too much. And the other thing you can do, my dog is having a dream, excuse us. She's starting to make these weird noises. I will tell her to stop if she gets too loud. I'll wake her up slightly. So you could also put the sculpture on a piece of paper just to separate it from the table if you want. I do a lot of my sculpture early in the morning. Right now it's about 3 a.m. It's just a very creative time for me. And before I went to sleep last night, I was thinking about this and what I was going to do. So yeah, doing figures like this it takes more of your ability and training and that sort of thing. And for me, it doesn't always work out because I don't do a lot of figures like this. You know, I do a fair amount of animals, and that sort of thing, but you know, figures like this, it takes a bit of work. Just keep going with this. The best thing to do, like, if you're gonna use this as a tutorial and learn from it, is to follow after me. You know, let me set the, kind of tell you what to start next, and then you just follow along. You let me be the coach, so to speak. And you don't worry about doing as well as me or anything like that. And, you know, because also you may not be able to, you actually might do a better piece than me too, because, you know, it's just, that's the way it is. Unless you're sculpting things like this all the time, you know, like they say, practice makes perfect. So we're doing this, the sculpture is, it's a little bit of everything. It's going to be like where you actually assemble simple shapes to form figures, and also it's going to be like adding clay and actually sculpting that way by adding little bits of clay and smoothing them in. It's going to probably be a little bit of carving also. I'm putting on an arm here, which is basically just a noodle of clay. I just want to start moving it in the direction of making a figure. Definitely kind of large. I'm going to bring the hair down around here so the breasts are not exposed, really. So this would be something that you could put in a fairy garden and show it to anyone. There's a time and place for everything. But I want to kind of get the figure going, and I'm just working, trying to get the positioning. I put her arms in her lap. I move the tail a little bit just to kind of connect it with the base. And I'm paying attention to what I call form. You have to keep in mind I'm a self-taught artist, so some of the terminology I use is, my own, because I never was taught anything about it. I call it relaxed form, where the sculpture just looks like it belongs a certain way. I actually almost like this, maybe a little bit more work, but almost as a finished piece right there. Just a suggestion, We could turn her head and maybe have it come down a little bit, looking down, like that. And also, assembling the shapes to form a figure, it can work by itself as a way to sculpt, but really, you might as well just take your time and maybe do a little bit of carving and get used to, when you have working on a figure like this, just take your time and do some carving and take the opportunity to learn how to sculpt in other ways. So we're going to do a little bit of that too. Basically just trying to get that nice relaxed form, and the best way I can put that is your easy chair on Thanksgiving Day, after you all ate and one of your family members relaxing in the chair falls asleep and he's just kicked back. That's the best way to put it, because you're trying to achieve something that looks somewhat realistic anyways. And if it's all jacked up and sitting at attention, then you can't really, that can be realities, of course, but it usually isn't. So, and the other thing is, of course, is as you're doing this, to look at all angles, to make sure that all angles are smooth and flowing as you do it. I really like the idea of a mermaid that is sitting and looking down like she's looking at the water below her. I can sort of imagine water around this stone. I'd like to try to do a little bit of sculpting for the hair, and oftentimes the way I do it is I form a shape in my hand and then I just apply it, and then after that I start sculpting it and working it to make it look like hair. So I'm just rolling a noodle here to start with. See if that's about the right length, and bring it back, and then and of course I'm paying attention to how I lay it on as well. See how that looks, and it's actually very thick. It could be, you could you know, process the clay in one of those little presses and make little tiny noodles of clay, and you know, just put them on there. You can do it all kinds of ways. The thing is, you're the artist and you can decide how it's going to be. If I go up off of camera, sometimes if the figure goes up like that, I should explain. I mean, it's not, I don't do it on purpose, first of all. But the camera is between me and the subject. This is a subject, and I'm back here. And it's a little bit difficult sometimes to concentrate on all of this. And I'm watching the video happening, being made through the camera. I'm actually watching. Right now I'm looking at the sculpture through the camera. It's a little bit hard to do. So I ask that you be patient with me when that happens, and believe me, when I'm editing the video later on, I'm screaming at myself. You know, because I don't, you know, if I'm going up off a camera and I'm working and I'm trying to do a tutorial here, obviously you can't see it, and so when I'm doing the editing and I'm seeing that I've done that, I'm actually, you know, I'm screaming at myself, Jacob, lower it, bring it back. You know, it's funny. But yeah, I want you to be very happy with what you see here on my channel. I mean, I worked very hard on that, and you know, keep in mind I'm a self-taught video maker, so we're going to start with that, and then I'll probably add some here. Actually, I think I'm going to add, oh yes, of course, that's right. I forgot that I want to bring this forward a little bit to obscure the breasts, and I did forget that. So let me bring this around, and I can build onto that a little bit. So I'll bring Just really almost need one more here at the side of the head. Most of you, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I frequently now sculpt in black clay. And a lot of it has to do with the finishes that I do, because the base color for those finishes, you know, is best in black. Like the mica finishes, the Pearlex pigments and that sort of thing. It really, those finishes just really stand out if it's on black. But also, I want to say, I used to, most of my sculpting in my first years of sculpting and all the way up until a few years ago was sculpting with water-based clay. And I didn't really like to sculpt in the white gray clays. I like to sculpt in the terracotta and red clays. And the reason why, and it is because you can see it's just contrast and things like that. Shadows show up differently, and you can actually see it here, you know, around the hair, and you can see like this shadow right here in that indentation, and that shadow there where the fin comes up against the stone. Those things, that contrast and shadow changes substantially when you're using a darker clay, and it makes creating a lot easier and a lot better for me. And so that's a lot of the reason why I do it. It wouldn't have to be black, but since the black works so well with my other finishes, you know, it just kind of became a natural thing. I just think that even that by itself, you know, without much finishing work on it, is really quite beautiful. I'm going to blend in the hair to the forehead here of this mermaid a little bit. And by bringing that hair forward, I have obscured the breasts a little bit. There's still, you can see them, but they're not so obvious. So I think a lot of people, you know, are uncomfortable about that sort of thing. So I'm just kind of looking to see how this is going to work, and then okay, she's coming along here, and I think we're gonna work on the face a little bit. And now I took it a long ways before, you know, deciding to work on the face, and part of the reason why is because I wasn't sure I was going to do any kind of face on her. On really small pieces like this, unless you practice faces, doing faces, human faces, fairy faces, mermaid faces, whatever, it takes a lot of practice, and I don't do a lot of sculpture like this anymore. So with that in mind, you know, I don't know if I want to put a face on it, and actually I really like this. With a little bit more work, it's almost just beautiful by itself without putting a face on it. So maybe I also, you know, you could add texture to the hair, but for this piece, because it's very simple in its finish on the, you know, the appearance is so simple, I don't think I want to carve the hair any much more than it already is, but I might like to add some curves to the bottom. I did it off camera a few minutes. I added that little curve there around at the bottom of that strand of hair there. You know, still it's art. I mean, this is art, you know, so you, when you're making a piece, you just have to, sometimes you just have to decide, you know, this isn't really what I expected to be, have this tutorial be, and what the outcome would be. I didn't really know what the outcome would be. So, but now as it takes form, I think this is just a simply beautiful piece like that. I really do. And I really personally do not want to start, you know, messing with it too much, other than to make it a little bit better by adding some curves and maybe working on the fins a little bit, like you can see here, and letting you experience, you know, experience that a little bit. I think I want to try to enhance this fin a little bit. I've looked at many photographs of mermaids, and you know, some people, they just don't do anything with, some artists don't do anything with the fins, but I have noticed that the fins are really kind of an amazing part of a mermaid, and should not be treated lightly. So I'm going to work on those a little bit here, just kind of showing you this is just not planned out at all. I mean, and some artists sculpt, they know exactly what they're going to make, and they can say, you know, exactly what they'll make, exactly what they plan to make. I'm not an artist like that. I start out with a concept or an idea, and then I just work from that, and you know, whatever happens, happens. It's kind of like that with me. I'm just kind of working on enhancing the fins a little bit. I'm adding little bits of clay to do that. A little bit more depth and interest. And notice how I keep picking up the sculpture. I don't really want to put paper underneath it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't really want to do that right now. So I'm just, every once in a while I pick up the sculpture. And see, you can add clay, like, you know, they don't have to be shapes of clay, like noodles and balls or whatever. I mean, it can just be bits of clay, and sculpting it in to form what you want. And if it doesn't work out, you can take it away. A long time ago, I was a wood carver, and you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that with wood. I mean, you could, but it would be a mess, and you'd be gluing all the time and carving it back and everything, and it just it's not really, it's hard to do. Wood carving is very hard to do. In 1990, I became a clay sculptor and started working in clay, and I was hooked. I was so hooked. All right. So that, you can see that kind of just adds to it a little bit. Now, I just want to talk about a few more things. We want to, you know, of course, smooth it out however you see fit. You know, there's sometimes just leaving sculpting marks in adds character to a piece, but that shouldn't be an excuse not to finish your piece and make it look the way it would look best. So, you know, if you're going to smooth the piece and you decide to do that, then you should take your time and just, you know, do a really good job of that. There's a number of ways to smooth polymer clay, And one way is with alcohol, and just using alcohol and to clean it up. And tools and your fingers and just smoothing and taking your time to go around to do that. And then I don't know actually at this point if I'm going to do the bronze finish. I actually like this in black, like the way it is, and I haven't really decided. But if I decide to do that, then I'm going to probably do that on camera so you can see it. Okay, so I'm finishing up this mermaid here, and I'm just leaving it, fairly simple. I've done some smoothing on it, but I left a fair amount of sculpting marks in it, fingerprints and that sort of thing. I just think it adds character to it, and when you finish it, it just can look really nice. And I'm going to do this finish a little bit different than I usually do a finish on one of my black clay figures. I'm going to be using Pearl X pigments, and this is antique bronze, and it really looks better if it's put on with your finger as opposed to a paintbrush. At least the bronze. I mean, not all the colors are like that, but with the bronze, it's definitely the case. And the antique bronze. So, also on this piece, I want to keep the finish simple. I really don't want to just cover this thing with gold bronze. I really don't. But it's going to be natural for me to, when I start to put the finish on, to want to put a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then pretty soon I got something I don't really want. The finish on a sculpture is just as important as the sculpture itself. Keep that in mind, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, the way I do this is I get a little bit of the bronze on my finger like that. And then I take my thumb and I swirl it like that, usually once or twice. And it sort of just makes the bronze a little bit smoother, I guess you could say. And then I'm just going to accent the piece with the bronze. I'm not going to cover it with bronze. I'm going to accent it. So here on the tail, I'll put a little line of it there. A little line of it there. Maybe a little bit here. And a little bit on the hair. A little bit here. And a little bit here. The black itself is very pretty. This is going to be this piece is going to be a lot prettier if I just go really light on the bronze. I definitely want to highlight the hair. Just touches of it, and then when the piece, when you're done with it, the piece is like, people look at it and they say, "Wow, it's really beautiful," and you can see lots of black on it. I mean, obviously, but that goes back to what I said earlier about when you sculpt in something that's dark, like red clay or black clay. I mean, you're going to see light and shadow differently than if it was all white. And if you do your finish with that in mind, it's going to be just beautiful. And I really do think that piece is beautiful. And I'm really glad that you could be here to see me make it. Again, my name is Jacob Folger. I'm an artist sculptor. I'm self-taught. I take the things that I've learned over the years as an artist and I bring them to this channel. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. Please rate the video. Let me know what you think of it. Leave me a comment, a question. I reply to all. And if you have any ideas for a video or something like that, about something, you have a subject that you're interested in, you'd like to see one, put that in the comment section as well, and I'll see what I can do for you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support, and have a great day.